1969, beginning of the summer, I was living in California, living in Hollywood, working for IBM, wondering where life was going. I was approached by a friend of mine, a fraternity brother, Chris Cowling. Chris Cowling says, you want to invest money in a rock festival? And I said, well, I don't know what a rock festival is, but it sounds pretty interesting. And he explained a little bit about it, and I was ready to leave IBM. So I said, yeah. So I put up some money. This is for the Atlanta Festival, at beginning of the summer, July 4th. So went to the festival, and my life was changed, as many lives have been at festivals. So after that festival was over, we got our crew together, hooked up with Angus, Wynn, and went to Texas.
We couldn't find any place that was large enough and rural enough, I'll say. You know, we didn't want to have it in a stadium or in town anywhere, but we had to quickly locate a field, a lake, any place that we could do it. And we got in the cars and just started traveling around the area as fast as we could, and we passed the DIMS Speedway. We didn't want to have it in the stands there or anything. And we had this big, magnificent field bordered by a forest and a creek. It's where Gary put up the watch out for the snakes sign.
We put the Texas Festival together in approximately 3 or 4 weeks. It was just uncanny.
It was a Herculean kind of a thing, but it was something that could only have been done in the fever of those days.
We met with Ralph Adams, Chief Adams. Here we are, some guys from California and Hollywood, and dressed pretty hippie-ish. And we walk into the Lewisville Police Department, and people are looking at us funny, and we're looking at them funny. So we walk in there, and Chief Adams says, go on into my office, boys. And pretty soon he comes strolling in. He doesn't even look at us. He just strolls in, sits in his chair, rocks back, puts his feet up on the desk, lights a match, starts puffing on a cigar. He gets the cigar going and takes a couple hits, blows out some smoke, and he says, now what can I do for you boys? We're just like, are we in a movie or is this for real? We need perimeter security. Inside the festival fence belongs to us. We'll take care of all the problems inside. You take all the problems outside. He said, that sounds good to me. Everything that we asked him for, it was like, yes, whatever it takes to make this event work well.
I went to Woodstock 2 weeks beforehand at the last minute to see what was going to happen up there, so I could try to avoid anything like that or do the same things that they did.
About 10 days before the festival starts, something like that, here comes Angus and Chris, and they're freaked out. They're just like, wide-eyed. Everybody from Woodstock's coming to Texas. 300,000, 500,000. And we're going, we're not ready.
I had seen Woodstock on all the national TV. Everything was about all these hippies taking over, all of New York, Well, I was intrigued, My father was aghast. He was just like, oh my God, what's this world coming to, and all that. One night, and this old boy, all I remember is his name, Jesse. I have no idea what his last name was. But he and a bunch of people were hanging out, and they were talking about this pop festival coming up. It's like, what, where? And they said, it's gonna be over, and they said Dallas, And I was like, oh my God, he said, we got room for one more, you wanna go? And I said, oh, yeah, I'm in, And so I went home, and I was so excited, I told my mom and dad that I was going to this. My dad was like, no, you're not. You are not going to that pop festival. And I said, ever since I saw Woodstock on TV a couple of weeks ago, I've been always wanting to go, and I'm going, And he said, if you leave this house, don't you ever come back. And I just went and got my stuff and took off.
I lived in Denton. I was a part-time student, and also I was a legal secretary. My boyfriend at the time was, and later my husband, was he was sort of a hippie, a bit of a hippie. And I loved the music and I liked him, so we came to the pop festival.
Tell me about what it was like going there that first day.
Crazy. Didn't know where to park, and so the first day I ended up parking on the side of 35.
Well, they parked in the center median. They parked everywhere they could get a car. And it was that way all the time.
There was like 120,000 people. Lewisville at the time was what, 9,000?
No.
Had one red light.
I was amazed at how many people that were there and how everybody got along and shared. I mean, it was really very interesting.
I'm sure from the backside it looked like chaos, but compared to Woodstock, I mean, it didn't rain, so it wasn't a mud fest. They weren't having to reschedule acts, and everybody got along. Everybody was very mellow. You could leave your stuff on the ground and come back and be there later. Nobody was going to steal it.
I was part of the security. It was horse security. We rode the back fence behind the stage area. Every once in a while, somebody would be trying to sneak in, and we'd go out and tell them you can't do this, and lead them over to the racetrack, and they'd haul them to the front. Not very many though, and they were all cooperative. Anybody we stopped, they just gave us a sad story. Couldn't believe a horse could chase them down that fast. They were just trying to get in.
I didn't have a ticket and I didn't have any money, and I was outside the gate. They all went in because they had tickets. I saw a few people jump the fence and take off running, and some of them got caught and some of them didn't. There was a kid on the inside, already gone through the gate, and he says, "Hey," and I said, "Yeah," and he said, "You want a ticket?" And I said, "Yeah, right." And he said, "No, I found one on the ground." And I said, "Oh yeah, right." And he said, "No, I'll give it to somebody else." I said, "No, I'll take it." So he handed it to me through the fence, and so I went over to the gate and I walked in, and they took my ticket, and I walked through, and I thought, nobody grabbed me. Finally, I spotted some people I knew. I joined in with them, and they had some weed, and we'd pass some around, and then we'd pass it on down and never see it again. But somebody else would be passing one down, and it would go that way, and you'd take a hit off of it, and it would keep going. There was no Bogart that joint because it was all just going both ways. It was great.
We have spent a good deal of time in working with Chief Ralph Adams of the Lewisville Police Department to ensure that both traffic hazards and drug abuse are dealt with both swiftly and forcefully.
People just brought all kinds of medication, let's put it. And I don't even know what all it was. And something I took, I don't even hardly remember part of, Led Zeppelin was like a blur.
There were some freakouts inside. We had the special tent.
It was like a medical tent for people who just, were overdosed but not, needing hospital care or something. They'd take them back there and watch after them just to make sure they didn't hurt themselves or something like that. But they just wander around acting goofy or just sit there on a bale of hay and stare off in the distance.
A lot of that stuff was there, but it wasn't advertised. It wasn't publicized. People didn't hear about it. It wasn't as shocking.
There wasn't any problem. There was no violence. They made no arrest. When the rednecks started coming in, and some of them did want to start trouble, they just handed them a beer and then handed them a joint. And they just kind of, okay. And they started joining in. And before too long, probably some of them turned into hippies, but they at least, would accept us for what we were, which was just their brothers.
I guess they couldn't take all that marijuana. We were down there in the crows, just much marijuana. We were down there, you can see them crows when they go through that smoke, fly into them trees and just fall over.
First time we went down in pickup, and before we get down, we had a flat. Hypodermic needle in the flat in the car.
Hey, they were so high, they didn't care. They just listened to music and get high, get naked. I did patrol the dam, though, with my binoculars to make sure none of them was going to drown. But we had hundreds of boats out here from local people.
If you ask me, the bigger problem was the old lecherous men out in their boats trying to catch a view through binoculars. So.
I was not one that got naked down at the water. I did go down there with a washcloth, or I don't remember, somebody's t-shirt or something, and, you know, tried to clean up a little bit, but no, I did not get naked and get in the water. So if my kids ever see this, I didn't do that.
We didn't have a bathtub around anywhere, and we weren't really dirty hippies, okay? We got the idea to bathe in the lake. And of course, you know, we only had one change of clothes, most of us, so we'd strip down and jump in there and skinny dip. And meanwhile, there was a reporter standing, interviewing a married couple, and they were talking about how devilish we were and the terrible things we were doing. And the whole time, and he mentions this in the article, the whole time, they're passing back and forth a pair of binoculars.
I was on staff at that time with the Houston Chronicle as a photographer. The paper assigned me and a writer to come up and have a go at it. We arrived up in Lewisville, and lo and behold, to my young eyes, there was a throng of folks in the water without their bathing suits. So I went back to the car and got my equipment and came back to the edge of the water. And they really weren't doing anything out in the water except just hopping up and down, showing off the fact that they were naked. And one of the cowboy types said, "Look at there, he's got his clothes on."
After the first night of the festival, we were summoned by the mayor, and he said, "A lot of my constituents are older folks, and they have made it very clear to me." They said they're not worried about loud music, about the hippies, about the dope, about anything out here except for one thing, and that's those naked men and women in the lake over there. Hugh, or Wavy Gravy, they said, "Can't you do anything about those folks?" And he said, "Well, I don't think so, but I'll do what I can." And the next day, he was out, he had on a silver jumpsuit and a big old cowboy hat and a bullhorn. He waded out into the water where the skinny dippers were and started haranguing them, saying, "You know, they got a trouble in here. Can't y'all cover up a little bit?" And they all went, "I'll go away."
A lot of the kids that were there had hitchhiked and traveled from Woodstock down there, and it was interesting to hear their stories of how they got there and what they've been doing, what they've been eating. I mean, some of them were just going for garbage cans on the trip down, truck stops and stuff, you know, so they were literally hitchhiking from New York down here to Lewisville.
But it was really more about the music and dancing, and party was very hot. I remember, very, very hot, because we were just out in the middle of an open field.
It was hot. I do remember a couple people passing out from the heat, but besides that, that was, you know, they'd get up there and dance like crazy for like an hour because they were stoned or something, drunk or something.
They got too hot. Some of them maybe had a little too much to drink or smoke.
There was a water truck right there where I was, and every once in a while they'd come over and spray everybody down. Some people that were inside would come up to the fence and let them spray them down.
We never even saw a conflict between two people, fussing or pushing or fighting or nothing. We never saw any of that. They were there to have fun and relax, and that's what they did.
It was more just about enjoying the music.
Booking acts at the same time that Woodstock was, and so we had a lot of the same people, and we had people they didn't have, they had people we didn't have.
Texas Pop was kind of a different lineup from like Woodstock. At Woodstock, you saw a lot more folk. Didn't see that at Texas Pop. It was much more, well, the biggest part of it was blues and rock blues. A lot of it was my playlist, Nas, Janis, Led Zeppelin, like Sly and the Family Stone, it was funk, or it was psychedelic, like Sweetwater, Santana, which was kind of a Latin jazz fusion. I mean, it was a who's who for me. It was made to order.
Sly and the Family Stone, they were outrageous. I want to take you higher, and oh my God. And every time he did that, it was as if he did it. He took us higher.
And then Chicago played, and it was like a wall of sound. I mean, it just surrounded us. I was probably pretty stoned by then. It was marvelous, and it got dark, and the lights, and it was just all a big functioning thing. And here I was a hippie in Texas, for crying out loud. It was such a feeling of safety and brotherhood and sisterhood to be among all these people. We were just all together and feeling something that we'd never felt before. That night ended with Janis Joplin.
She was pretty amazing, and she interacted with the crowd about, come on, Lewisville, I can't believe this is happening, and that kind of thing.
One time she said, man, I was kind of uptight about being here at first, but you guys are great.
I expected Janis to put on a great show, she did. I expected Zeppelin to put on a great show, they did. They got pretty crazy for a while with their jamming, got a little far out there, but then came back. It was, $18 or something for 3 days, and you're listening to like 25 bands doing an average of probably 6 to 10 numbers each. So, do the math, you're hearing like 150 different songs performed in a 3-day period for $20. So how do you find anything wrong with that? It's a heck of a deal.
This pop festival could go down as one of the smoothest, well-run pop festivals of its kind anywhere. The theme, if there is any theme to this pop festival besides music, seems to be peace and tranquility, at least for the majority of the young people here.
The people were just fantastic. The kids were wonderful. The spirit of it was great. It was peaceful, and the music was great.
It wasn't, the music or the people. Well, it was just all kind of one thing, We were like one big living organism.
I can't even imagine that they put that together as quickly as they did, and to think of all the things that could have gone wrong that didn't. And a lot of it was just because of the time. It was a special moment, and the crowd and their attitude toward each other and the time.
I would have probably ended up going if I hadn't been working there, just to see what it was all about, just for the curiosity's sake.
Everybody was so friendly and nice and sharing and everything, and I was just so dumb that, I'm just grateful that I didn't get seriously injured or anything, but I did do quite a bit of drugs, quite frankly,
Basically, it was just a good experience, something we won't forget.
I think the thing that sticks out in my head was the people, just the camaraderie, and everybody got along with everybody trying to help everybody else out, sharing stuff. You'd share your food, you'd share your water, you'd share your space. I mean, you met people that you might never see again, probably didn't in my case, but they were like old friends instantly. It was that vibe, that feeling that we're all here for the music, we're all here to have a good time, we're not here to, make trouble or have fights or have something go wrong, and let's hope it doesn't rain.
People are still curious about it, and people who were there, multiplied out and talked about it to folks, and it's really hard for people to wrap their heads around how people felt. The communal spirit was so great there that was as much of an attraction as what was going on in front of them.
I hope that Lewisville gets on the map with this, because the peace, love, and joy of a festival, the real reason it was all done, the coming together of that many people, and the dynamic was that everybody found that the sameness in themselves, that there was an ability to love and it be okay, and be yourself, and it'd be okay. Because everybody looked pretty weird in those days about that time. But it was okay. With the festival, the music is the magic, and it brings everybody together, and it unites. And there will always be differences, but they don't have to be so contentious.